I was a regular 29-year-old office worker. I went to a typical college, had some romantic relationships, and then married a woman I met for work-related socializing. We couldn't have kids, but I had no particular complaints about either my job or my wife. I thought we could continue to live these ordinary, happy days peacefully. However, my company unexpectedly went bankrupt the other day. There was no warning, just a sudden notice of termination. I knew today would come, but I never imagined it would be my own company. I was pretty much in panic mode when it happened. My wife and I, married for 2 years, had been talking about buying a condo in the future, and we had just started saving money. When I told my wife I had lost my job, she snapped at me, saying,
Find a new job fast.
it was the first time she had ever yelled at me like that. And honestly, I was shocked. I wonder if she was just worried about me. But I really couldn't feel that way. Ever since I lost my job, her attitude towards me has changed completely, becoming suddenly very cold. We were both working, so she would go to her job during the day. She used to prepare meals and do household chores, but she stopped doing anything at all. Well, as an unemployed guy, I couldn't really complain, and it was what it was. So aside from job hunting, I did as much housework as I can, regardless of my wife's attitude, until I found a job. She was right, and so I had no choice but to look for employment. The company I originally worked for treated us quite well, and since I was hired as a fresh graduate, I didn't have any trouble finding a job and got hired smoothly. But now, with the economy being tough everywhere, it wasn't so easy for me, a man in his late 20s without any qualifications, to find a new job. I returned home without making any progress. After a few days of this, when I came home one day, I couldn't believe my eyes. Everything was gone from the house, from the sofa to the TV to the fridge. Wait, did I come home to the wrong house? I thought, and I stepped outside to check the nameplate of the house. But there was no mistake. This was my house. What is going on? I blurted out in panic. Taking a deep breath and looking around the house calmly once again, my eyes landed on a piece of paper. When I took a closer look, it was a half-filled out divorce form. Picking up the paper, I realized there was another sheet underneath the one I initially saw, and on it, in my wife's handwriting, was written,
Fill this out and submit it. I have no use for you anymore since you don't have a job and we can't have kids.
The moment I read that, my hands started shaking uncontrollably. And now, I was finally able to grasp the situation. The reason the house was empty, my wife must have taken everything while I was out job hunting. However, strangely enough, I didn't feel a surge of anger. Rather, a mixture of shock, sadness, and frustration overwhelmed me, leaving my mind blank and unable to muster the strength to care about anything anymore. It was inevitable, I thought. No one would want to stay with a man who's unemployed and can't have children. But in this situation, I couldn't even live day to day. Realizing this, I decided to go to a nearby electronics store since it was fortunately still around 6 p.m. I planned to buy the necessary household appliances like a fridge and a washing machine. So, I decided to withdraw some money and headed to the ATM at a convenience store. But I couldn't withdraw anything. My savings account balance was $0. Whoa! I uttered a foolish sound and tried again, but it was no use. I couldn't withdraw any money. This must have been my wife's doing as well. At this point, I felt more panic than anger. What am I going to do now? I almost cried standing there in front of the ATM. Feeling incredibly down, I went back to my empty house. Right now, all I had was a little over $200 in my wallet. Honestly, this amount wouldn't last me even a month. I decided to sleep on it and figure out my plan of action for the days ahead. I considered demanding my wife return the money and furniture that were partly mine since we both worked, but I figured the police would just say it's a domestic dispute, and I didn't have the money to hire a lawyer for divorce mediation anyway. So the next day, I decided to forget about my wife for the time being and focus on job hunting. However, just like always, the results were not good. I am still in my late 20s and thought that youth and enthusiasm could somehow make a difference, but it seemed the world was not as sweet as I had hoped. After trying hard for a while, there were no results, and the meaningless days continued. My future was looking bleak. I felt like I had been thrown into a tunnel with no light at the end. My savings were almost gone. I had lost my job, my wife, and was about to run out of money and lose my self-confidence. With these thoughts in my mind, I continued to walk without any particular destination. Before I knew it, the surroundings were dyed in the colors of sunset, and there was a small park in front of me. I sat down on a bench and held my head in my hands. Then I tried once again to think about what to do next. However, my mind was rejecting these farts, probably because thinking about it would only reveal a future filled with despair. What should I do? I couldn't help but mutter to myself. I don't know how long I sat on that bench. The surroundings had completely darkened, and although there were a few people passing by when I arrived, now there was no one in sight. Lost in my thoughts and staring at the ground, I was caught off guard when a woman's voice reached my ears, asking,
What's wrong?
I looked up to find a beautiful woman standing before me. I had this feeling that I had seen her somewhere before. However, I couldn't quite place her, and a few seconds of silence passed between us. Then she asked again.
Are you okay?
Snapping back to reality, I managed to respond, I'm fine. Who are you, if I may ask? I realized that this could come across as extremely rude if she was someone I knew, but at that moment, I just couldn't think straight. So that, she responded,
Oh, right. You don't remember me, do you?
I immediately realized how rude my question must have sounded and quickly apologized, bowing my head. However, she looked somewhat troubled. After a few more seconds of silence, she finally spoke up.
Thank you for always coming to my cafe.
Hearing her words, it all came flooding back to me. I had been frequenting a cafe since I began my job hunt, having lost so many things in my life. That cafe was a real gem, affordable and delicious, a true lifesaver given my dwindling funds. She was the cafe's manager, always greeting me with a smile. I responded, trying to put on a brave face. Thank you so much for always being so kind. I'm fine, really. Sorry for showing you such a pathetic sight. Then she sat down next to me, looked into my eyes, and said in a gentle voice,
You don't have to pretend to be strong.
Her words almost brought tears to my eyes, but I held them back and confessed, You're right. I guess I'm just a bit worn out. I told her everything that had happened. She got angry on my behalf, saying it was unforgivable. Then she made an offer I never saw coming.
Let's show that wife of yours. I'll help you. I'll take care of you until you find a good job.
I wondered if it was really okay for her to do so much for a man she had only just met. I thought it might be a joke or just a polite offer, but her expression was deadly serious. I initially refused, as it seemed too much, but going back to a home with no bedding, prepared to sleep on the floor, and almost ready to resign myself to homelessness. Eventually, I gave in and accepted her kindness, moving in to stay at her place. Of course, I slept on the sofa. The next day, since my previous job had a casual dress code, I realized I didn't have a suit and certainly couldn't afford to buy one. So, I had been job hunting in my regular clothes. When she came home from work, she handed me a paper bag, saying,
This is a gift from me. I hope it helps you find a job soon.
Inside was a suit. She also started teaching me all sorts of things about job hunting. Although she always looked neat and a bit youthful, I hadn't realized she was 3 years older than me. True to her status as the owner of 5 stores, she had done a variety of jobs before, and she shared her knowledge and know-how about business with me. Then, a week later, I was able to find re-employment. What's more, the company offered better conditions than the one I had worked at before. I was overjoyed when I got the call confirming my hire, and I immediately shared the good news with her. She was genuinely happy for me, congratulating me with a beautiful smile on her face. Normally, our relationship should have ended there. However, I had genuinely fallen for her, the woman who had helped me so much, and I confessed my feelings. To my delight, she accepted, saying,
Please take care of me too.
with tears in her eyes. And just like that, we happily started dating. It was about 2 years into our relationship when my ex-wife suddenly wanted to get back together. I heard this from a friend, but apparently, my ex-wife had remarried and even had a child. However, her new husband's company had gone bankrupt, and she lost her job as well since she had been working at the same place. But instead of looking for a new job, her husband had settled into a lazy life at home, becoming completely dependent on her. And so, she left him and came back to me. I was utterly astounded by my ex-wife's audacity. After the way she dumped me, I couldn't believe she had the nerve to show her face in front of me again. I thought to myself, I'm glad we got divorced. Of course, I sent her away immediately. However, she was relentless and kept coming back over and over. To this, my girlfriend responded firmly.
Well, if it isn't the ex-wife, I'm honored to meet you. But just what audacity brings you in front of my boyfriend?
After that, we never saw my ex-wife again. I couldn't be more grateful to my girlfriend. Isn't there something I can do to thank you? I asked her. I know surprises are usually better, but I'm not quite skilled at such things. After hearing my words, she pondered for a moment and then jokingly said,
Well, how about marrying me then?
I couldn't hide my surprise at her words. And I responded, that was supposed to be my line. We both burst into laughter. And now, we live together as a family of 3. That's right. The child that I had given up hope on with my ex-wife came to live with us. A lovely, adorable little girl. Now, I truly am the happiest man alive. If she hadn't reached out to me, I wouldn't even know if I would be here right now, let alone having met my own child. I vow to make my wife and daughter happy no matter what for the rest of my life.